I found out I wasn't invited by accident. Not because someone slipped up and told me, but because silence has a way of making noise when you know where to listen. It started with a notification on my phone late one night. Not a message meant for me. A screenshot, forwarded by mistake, then quickly deleted. Too late. I had already seen it. A group chat. Bright icons. Familiar names. 17 people, my parents, my siblings, cousins, even an aunt who barely spoke to me anymore. All there. Laughing. Planning. One thing was missing. Me. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, zooming in like that might change the outcome. The chat name sat at the top in bold letters. Something cheerful. Something collective. I wasn't part of the collective. My name is Lily. I've always been the reliable one. Not the loudest. Not the favorite. The one who pays early, plans ahead, covers gaps quietly when others forget. For years, that role made me useful. Necessary. But usefulness, I was learning, isn't the same as belonging. I scrolled. Flights. Hotels. Rental cars. 17 people. For cars. A week-long trip I hadn't heard a word about. Then I saw the message that made my stomach tighten. Lily can handle the payment like last time. We'll settle up after. No question mark. No hesitation. Just an assumption. I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. The room was quiet. My apartment always was. Clean. Controlled. A space I'd built myself, piece by piece, after years of learning how easily I could be left out of rooms I thought I belonged in. I didn't text back. I didn't call anyone. I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I was anxious, but because something in me had shifted. I made coffee. Sat at the table. Opened my laptop. I pulled up my bank account first. Then the shared travel folder my family had access to. The one I'd created years ago when they decided it was easier if I handled bookings. Flights. Deposits. Insurance. The tedious parts no one else wanted to touch. The total sat at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $16,350. Already allocated. Already planned. Already assumed to be mine. I stared at the number, remembering how many times I'd said yes without being asked. How often I'd stepped in before anyone noticed there was a problem. I thought about the group chat again. 17 people. For cars. One space without me. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. I closed the spreadsheet, opened my email, and canceled everything. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Methodically. Flights first. Then accommodations. Then vehicle reservations. Each cancellation confirmed with a clean, unemotional message. When I was done, the total dropped to 0. I closed my laptop and went to work. At 6:30 a.m. the next morning, my phone started vibrating. I didn't pick it up. It buzzed again. And again. And again. When I finally looked, the screen lit up with a number that made me pause. 96 missed calls. Messages stacked underneath. What did you do? Call me now. This isn't funny. Why would you cancel? We were counting on you. Counting. On. You. I turned the phone face down again. For the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible for their panic. I felt detached from it. Later that day, my mother finally reached me. Her voice was tight, controlled, like she was trying very hard not to sound upset. Why didn't you tell us you were upset? She asked. I wasn't upset, I replied. I was excluded. That's not the same thing, she said quickly. It is when it's intentional, I said. There was a pause. Then, it wasn't intentional. I almost laughed. You planned a trip for 17 people, I said. You booked 4 cars. You created a group chat. And no one noticed I wasn't there. Silence. My father took the phone. You overreacted, he said. You could have just talked to us. I did talk, I replied. You didn't listen. We assumed you'd come later, he said. You assumed I'd pay, I corrected. Another pause. That's different, he said. No, I said calmly. It's not. By the end of the call, nothing was resolved. But something had been exposed. They hadn't left me out by mistake. They had left me out because it was easy. Because they didn't think I'd say no. because they believed reliability meant availability. They were wrong. That night, I sat alone again, scrolling through old messages, old trips, old receipts. Proof of a pattern I'd ignored for too long. I wasn't invisible. I was convenient. And convenience disappears the moment it stops being useful. I set my phone down and turned off the lights. Tomorrow, I knew, things would escalate. Because people who feel entitled to you don't handle boundaries quietly. And the morning I woke up to 96 missed calls was only the beginning. By noon, the missed calls had turned into strategy. I could tell because the tone of the messages changed. Panic gave way to negotiation. Accusations softened into explanations. Demands tried on politeness like a borrowed jacket. We didn't mean it like that. You know how these things get planned. We assumed you were busy. You're overthinking this. Overthinking. The word people use when they want you to doubt evidence you can clearly see. I didn't respond. That afternoon, my sister showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes sharp, not angry exactly, but inconvenienced. Like I disrupted a system that was never meant to account for my feelings. You really canceled everything, she asked. Yes. You didn't even tell anyone. I didn't need to, I said. The confirmations spoke for themselves. She scoffed. This is extreme. What's extreme, I replied calmly, is planning a $16,350 trip and assuming someone outside the plan would pay for it. She stepped inside without asking. Looked around like she was measuring how far I'd come without them. You've always handled the logistics, she said. That's just how it works. That's how it worked, I corrected. She rolled her eyes. You're acting like a victim. No, I said. I'm acting like an adult who noticed a pattern. She lowered her voice. Mom's embarrassed. Dad's furious. People had time off approved. I waited. You could have talked to us first, she added. I wasn't included in the conversation, I said. Why would I be included in the cleanup? She hesitated, then tried a different angle. You know they rely on you, she said. You're good at this stuff. There it was again. Not we value you. Not we appreciate you. We rely on you. Reliance without respect is just entitlement with better manners. I'm done being relied on, I said. I'm choosing to be considered or not involved at all. She stared at me, searching for the version of me that would soften. Apologize. Fix things. She didn't find it. You've changed, she said finally. Yes, I replied. I had to. She left without another word. That evening, the group chat lit up again. This time, someone had added me. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just logistics. Can you rebook with a different airline? Maybe we can downsize the hotel. If everyone sends you their share first. I typed one message. I won't be handling this. Then I muted the chat. Within minutes, my phone rang again. My father. You embarrassed us, he said the moment I answered. You embarrassed yourselves, I replied. We look irresponsible, he continued. People are asking questions. You are irresponsible, I said calmly. You planned something you couldn't afford without assuming my involvement. That's not fair, he snapped. You've always helped. Yes, I said. Without being asked. Without being acknowledged. Without being included. There was silence on the line. You could have just said no, he said. I did, I replied. You just didn't hear it until it cost you something. That landed. We're family, he said quietly. Families don't do this to each other. Families don't exclude someone and still expect their money, I said. He hung up. The following days were tense. Relatives reached out, some curious, some sympathetic, some clearly sent to gather information. A cousin admitted she hadn't realized I wasn't in the group chat until everything fell apart. I thought you didn't want to come, she said. No one asked, I replied. She was quiet for a moment. That's messed up. Yes, it was. What surprised me most wasn't the backlash. It was the relief. I slept better. Ate without knots in my stomach. Went through my days without anticipating the next request, the next assumption, the next quiet transfer of responsibility. For the first time, my absence forced others to step up. And they struggled. Plans stalled. Arguments broke out. People realized how much work went into something they'd treated as automatic. My mother called late one night. Her voice was tired. "We didn't realize how much you did," she said. "I told you," I replied gently. "We thought it was just clicking buttons," she said. I almost laughed. "Nothing runs on buttons alone," I said. She sighed. "I wish you'd told us how you felt." "I did," I replied. "For years. You just didn't need to listen." There was a long pause. "Can we fix this?" she asked. That was the first honest question anyone had asked. "I don't know," I said. "That depends on what fix means to you." She didn't answer right away. Because fixing a situation often means restoring convenience. And I wasn't interested in being convenient anymore. A week later, the trip was officially off. Not postponed. Not adjusted. Cancelled. The group chat went silent. No one said thank you for the years I'd handled everything. No one acknowledged the assumption that had led them there. But something else happened. They stopped calling. And in that quiet, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. They hadn't included me because they didn't think they needed to. They called me only when they realized they did. I stood in my kitchen that night, phone face down, lights low, thinking about the version of myself who would have caved. Who would have fixed it? Who would have paid? She was gone. And the people who had built their plans around her were finally feeling the absence. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was revealing. For years, noise had covered everything: messages, plans, last-minute fixes, my name typed into spreadsheets like a utility. When the trip collapsed and the calls stopped, what remained was clarity. No one knew what to do next. Weeks passed. Summer moved forward without the vacation everyone had counted on. Time off was wasted. Deposits were lost. Resentments fermented in private chats I wasn't part of and no longer cared to be. Then the reframing began. My aunt called to check in. A cousin messaged with a half apology wrapped in confusion. A family friend told me kindly that everyone was stressed and that I should try to understand. I did understand. I just didn't accept it anymore. One evening, my father asked to meet. Not at home. Not at a restaurant. At a quiet park near the river, where there would be no audience and no way to pretend this was casual. He arrived early. Sat on a bench. Looked smaller than I remembered. "I didn't think you'd follow through," he said when I sat down. "I know," I replied. He nodded slowly. "That's on me." We watched the water for a moment. He broke the silence. "We got used to you handling things," he said. "It became invisible." "That's what happens when work is done well," I said. "People forget it exists." He sighed. "We didn't forget you." I looked at him. "You forgot to include me." He didn't argue. "You embarrassed us," he said again, softer this time. "But we put you in that position." That was new. "I'm not here to be forgiven," I said. "I'm here to be clear." He nodded. "What does that look like?" "It looks like this," I said. "I don't manage your plans. I don't fund them. I don't get added later when something breaks. If I'm included, it's from the start, or not at all." "And if we need help?" he asked. "You ask," I said. "And you accept no as an answer." He sat back, considering. "Your mother won't like that." "I'm not negotiating with comfort," I replied. When I stood to leave, he didn't stop me. He just said, "You were right." That mattered. But not the way it once would have. My sister took longer. She called after the park meeting, her voice brittle. "They're blaming me," she said. I didn't respond. "You canceled because of me," she continued. "Because I didn't add you." "You canceled because you assumed," I replied. "I just ended the assumption." She went quiet. "I didn't think it would blow up like this," she said. "I know," I replied. "That's the problem." She tried to soften it. "You could have handled it quietly." "I did," I said. "I canceled quietly." The noise came after. She exhaled, frustrated. "You always have to make a point." "No," I said. I stopped making points. I made a boundary. There was a pause. Then, reluctantly, "What do you want now?" "I want consistency," I said. "And distance when it's needed." She didn't like that answer. But she accepted it. Over time, the family adjusted. Not perfectly. Not gracefully. But they adjusted. Trips were planned smaller. Payments were split up front. Someone else handled bookings and discovered how complicated just clicking buttons could be. Arguments happened earlier instead of being postponed by my quiet fixes. I wasn't called in emergencies. I wasn't consulted after decisions were made. I was asked sometimes. And when I said no, the world didn't end. It just moved on. One morning, months later, I woke up to a notification. A new group chat. This time, my name was there from the start. I didn't respond right away. I read the messages, the plan, the budget, the assumptions or lack of them. Then I typed one sentence. I'm not available for this, but I hope it goes well. No panic followed. No flood of calls. No demands. Just a few acknowledgements. That's when I knew the change had stuck. I never asked them to add me back. I never demanded recognition for the years I carried things alone. I didn't need the apology tour. What I needed was proof that my absence had taught something my presence never could. They planned a $16,350 trip without me. They woke up to consequences they hadn't budgeted for. And I woke up to something far better than vindication. Peace. Because being included by default had cost me too much. And being excluded on purpose had finally given me the freedom to choose.